Good evening, everybody. I guess we're going to get started. Thank you, Chris, for giving us the go-ahead. So we want to honor your and respect your time. Thank you all for coming here. And we have a couple of presentations that we can also plan to do at town meeting as well. But we wanted to give you the opportunity in advance to ask some questions, and also in case there's anything we need to get prepared for town meeting in order to be able to respond to your questions. We wanted to have that opportunity. So just by way of introduction, I'm Julie Jacobson, Town Manager, and we have Ed Kazanovich, Assistant Town Manager and CFO, Adam Menard, our Town Planner, Eilish Corey, our Engineer, Shannon Regan is over there, our Economic Development Person, and our Library Director, Jean Collins, and I know Bill Coyle. Forgive me, it's tough with the masks on sometimes to see who's here. So tonight, what we wanted to do, as we've done numerous times before town meetings, whenever there are articles that are not standard articles or articles that we think may generate a lot of questions, which tend to be bylaw revisions more than anything, we wanted to give town meeting members just this extra opportunity to ask us questions. We don't usually draw a large crowd, so we weren't concerned about the spreading out, but we wanted to make sure that, you know, those members who did come felt safe in here. So just to get started, we were going to run through a couple of things, and then we're certainly going to open it up for questions. I see a lot of people who have come to our meetings before, so this might be repetitive to you, but why do we have these informational sessions? Well, number one, it's to increase the communications that we have as town administration and promote dialogue with our town meeting members. We think it's really important for us to be able to explain things to you that you may have questions on. We want to provide information to you in advance of town meeting so you can make an informed decision at town meeting. And again, I want to be perfectly clear, this doesn't preclude anyone asking questions. It never has at town meeting. The intent of this is to just give you that extra couple of weeks to think about some of the information we've presented. We know we send it to you in a packet form, but sometimes getting it in a packet form really doesn't explain what it is we're trying to ask you to vote on. And we feel to respect your opinions and get you to vote on something, we want to be able to provide the information that you need to make that decision. We want to also, again, it gives us a little time to prepare. If you ask questions tonight and we don't have the information right away, we want to make sure we get that to you. And then whatever questions arise tonight, we will share again with all the town meeting members, because we understand not everyone can be here. I do want to note that this is being taped, so it will be played on our website, on Auburn Cable TV, just so the general public can see what's going on as well. While town meeting members are the ones who vote, we want to make sure that we have an enhanced process here and it's transparent. Again, this is the reason for this. It increases our civic engagement. We want to have a good dialogue with our town meeting members, and sometimes the only time we see you is 1 or 2 times a year. And lastly, we just want to remind you that we have had a number of these sessions before related to major items, either major initiatives, major plans, something that has a major cost, or something that's maybe complicated as far as a zoning or a general bylaw, which I know we have a couple of those tonight. I think the 2 zoning bylaws we have are fairly standard, and then we do have a very comprehensive stormwater bylaw that we're going to go over with you tonight. So basically, there are a couple of articles we wanted to review this evening, but please, if you have questions on other articles, we're here. We're absolutely happy to answer them. We're not the sponsors of all of the articles, so in some cases we may not have the level of detail that maybe comes from the school department or from another sponsor. But happily, if you have the questions, we want to hear them, and we'll make sure we get answers for you. So when town meeting comes, we can make sure that we provide that information to everybody. So the articles that we were planning on reviewing with you tonight are Articles 18 through 24. And just quickly, can you just show your hand? Did everyone get the warrant packet yet? The full warrant? Okay. We weren't sure if we understand that the mail has been a little slow at times, and we just weren't sure that you'd get your packets in time for tonight, which is why we sent another packet a couple days before that with these articles in it. So 18 to 24 provides funding for the library Goddard Park Pedestrian Bridge project. And basically this provides our 50% match to a grant that we received that we're going to go over. Article 28 is a zoning bylaw amendment, Article 29 is a zoning bylaw amendment, and Article 31 is a stormwater general bylaw. So I'm going to start and just go over the Library Goddard Park Pedestrian Bridge project. So we have had several public presentations on this. We first presented in early January to the Library Board of Trustees. We presented to them twice, actually. On the second meeting, we presented the financing plan, and they did take a vote to support this project. We presented to the Board of Selectmen, to the Finance Committee. We're here this evening presenting to you. We are going to play this on our website again so the public can see it, but we want to make sure all town meeting members have access to this information. And again, at our annual town meeting. And while I have you all here, annual town meeting this year is at 6 p.m. We backed it up by 1 hour once again because we do have some members that have indicated a preference to participating from their vehicles. So we didn't want them sitting out in the dark too long. You know, even by the time town meeting comes, hopefully we get a good few hours under us before it gets too dark. So we did back it up to 6 p.m. to help those people who, you know, had some concerns with coming in the building. So areas that this presentation is going to cover right now. I'm going to give you a summary of the proposed project. I'm going to show you how this project relates to all the approved plans and initiatives in town, estimated project costs, the source of our grant funding, and then our proposed plan for funding our 50% match. So this is a three-phased project. First, and not necessarily in this order, but there are three different components of it. And some or all may be able to start at the same time, but I think they're going to have to be staggered a little bit. The first is to install a large sunroom type addition to the back of the library facility. So if you were to walk in the front door of the library and go straight to the back, we're looking at putting a sunroom type addition in the back. It would be a good size addition. I'll get more information on that after. And it would open up the back of the library to, I'm probably not even aware of it because most people don't go back there, but it's closed off right now. But if it's opened up, you'd be able to see Goddard Park. And with a pedestrian bridge, you'd be able to go out the back door of the library and go right across the bridge and go to Goddard Park. And there are a number of great programs that we could put into place if we had that physical connection. The second part is to implement various improvements to Goddard Park itself. And I'm going to show you what we're proposing to do here, but I also want to make it clear, town administration will and continues to apply for grant funding all the time. So even if we get grant funds that can offset some of the funds here, we can use it for that. We may want to expand the scope of the Goddard Park project because we're hearing from a lot of residents that there are certain components that they'd really like to see. We didn't budget for it right now, but Goddard Park itself could be a multi-phased project with several different components to it. And then the last piece of it is the construction of a pedestrian bridge over the brook to physically link the library parcel with Goddard Park. So I'm just going to move this for a minute. The summary of this project is, first of all, let's see. I'm not sure if any of you have been at a lot of our planning meetings and community meetings that we've had over the last 6 or 7 years, but I'm going to go back maybe 5 years and just remind everyone we've had an economic development plan, we've had a master plan, we've had an open space plan, we've had a Drury Square vision plan, we've had the transportation improvement plan, we've had a number of different plans where we held numerous public meetings and invited the public in. And this project really is the implementation of a lot of the strategies and goals that the residents identified as being important priorities to them for the town. And Drury Square, as you all know, has been an important piece of the town. It is our downtown, and we have a lot of investment ongoing there right now. This program would, again, create a physical link between Goddard Park and the library with the construction of the pedestrian bridge that would span over Dunn's Brook, which would improve and enhance Goddard Park and provide new space at the back of the library that will visually connect Goddard Park to the library and provide the opportunity for some new outside programming and also some expanded indoor space. So just picture the library the way it is now. If we add a good size addition on the back of it, we'll be able to rearrange some of the space inside and free up some space inside for some programs that we haven't been able to hold as well as we could as if we had additional space. The pedestrian bridge would actually provide the connectivity to enable the town to develop walking trails through Goddard Park to the library. Picture this, Goddard Park to the library, to Brotherton Way, and then back again to Goddard Park. It will create a complete loop. I believe Bill Coyle and Eilish have been working on a plan, actually, because we're applying for another grant, which hopefully would give us some funds to offset the bridge, but we can't count on that happening. Sometimes you're in these rounds for several years. But under that plan, we're showing a walking trail. It's a loop, and it would be about a half a mile, start to finish. So residents, employees of the area could go to that area and take a walk and be connected and not have to get off the trail. Right now, if we put in a walking trail, it's going to stop at Goddard Park. You're going to have to back up and go back out again because you can't get to the library from there. The improvements will create a really welcoming environment at the library as well as Goddard Park, and we're hoping that this will encourage more residents and surrounding businesses to utilize the park, as well as to provide access to the library once you're in the park. This ties in with everything going on at Drury Square right now. In providing direct access to Goddard Park, to the library via this pedestrian bridge, the town, this could be a huge asset for some interactive programming. And I'm looking over at the library director, Jean Collins, because we've had some discussions about some exciting programs that we could hold if residents could go to the library and from the library go across over to Goddard Park. They could utilize the pond. There were some family activities that we could do. There were some programs that the state would support through their state funding to the town for some various outdoor type programs. And our outdoor programs have been extremely successful at the library. We're just limited on how many we can have and where we can seat people. So this would be a huge asset. And this would also be a glass sunroom. So again, picture it would bring light into the building. It would be almost a rounded roof, glass sunroom running the span of the back of it. And because we would put this sunroom there, we wouldn't have to replace the windows on the back. So that's part of what Ed's going to review with the funding source, because it would eliminate the need to replace those windows. We would also, I would tell you that this project is a huge complement to the ongoing $4.2 million Auburn Street project that town meeting has voted to support and the state is funding right now. And the town, as you know, through town meeting support, is funding another $900,000 in aesthetic improvements to that. We were able to secure an additional $700,000 in funding from the state because we were thankfully able to push our project forward with the support of town meeting a year ago, January, with the special town meeting to vote for the easements and the land takings that we needed to make this project happen. And as you all know, you can see it, it's ongoing. It started in the summer, actually. So this project really complements all of that. And most recently, we received a grant from the state for $280,000 through a shared streets program. And that is funding $280,000 of, really it's a $400,000 project on Brotherton Way. So this is all tied into the same area. So I mentioned the projects. I think it's important to note again, this idea didn't come out of nowhere. This idea wasn't just dreamed up. This idea has been discussed and really put together on multiple community functions where residents and businesses came in and made recommendations for certain things that we should do to Drury Square, including walking trails, a pedestrian bridge, a garden near the library, more outdoor programming at the library, the ability to go from the library to Goddard Park, bicycle trails. So this has been identified in various segments of it through the Planning, Vision, and Design Guidelines for Drury Square, the Economic Development Plan, the Drury Square Village District Zoning Bylaw, the Master Plan, the Facade Improvement Program, the ADA Self-Evaluation and Transition Plan that we just completed, the Suggested Guidelines for Drury Square, the Wayfinding and Placemaking Initiative, the Auburn Public Library Strategic Plan, the Transportation Improvement Plan, and 2 projects that we've been working on with the CMRPC to design Goddard Park. I just wanted to put a couple of photos there. I'm sure you're all familiar with it, but Goddard Park is a beautiful asset, but it needs some improvements. It needs updating. And if you look across the brook there to the library, it could make a very nice public space if they were connected. When we were in the process of doing both our master plan and our design guidelines for Drury Square and the Drury Square Vision Plan, the consultant that we hired had done some analysis of Drury Square. And I put this in here because I thought it would be interesting to you. By land area, the largest property use in Drury Square is actually public institutional. You think of it, it's the high school. It is, on one side it's a high school. On the other side of Southwood Street, it's the Auburn Library, Goddard Park, and the Auburn Fire Rescue Headquarters, including all the land beside it. So I believe it's a little over 50% of that land, which this actually shows you, more than 50% of that land is owned by the town, yet they're not connected. So when you think of it, you have a lot of separate parcels that are all town-owned parcels, and they're beautiful, each and of themselves, but there's no connectivity. So I won't go through all of these, but I wanted to make it clear that a lot of these ideas came from our residents here, and we're trying to implement the ideas that the residents proposed. And this project really hits on a number of those strategies and goals. And some of the comments that we received from the Drury Square design guidelines were to improve the park, to incorporate more public amenities such as a canoe launch, kayaks, a walking trail around the pond, a new pedestrian bridge connecting the library site, more benches, a covered seating area or a gazebo for concerts, which again we do have a gazebo in the plan for the Auburn Street reconstruction project. That would be, if you're facing the fire station, would be to the right of the fire station. There will be one there. This plan also said the town should work to identify public and private grant opportunities to facilitate streetscape and park improvements, which this project does, and to restore the fountain in Goddard Park and the construction of a pedestrian bridge over the water connecting the library to Goddard Park. These are just some comments from our residents. Again, excerpts from the 2020 Library Strategic Plan, which had over 400 respondents to a survey. And one of many of the goals in the Library Strategic Plan were to maximize the use of the interior and the exterior space of the library, because right now we're not using the exterior the way we should. It's a great facility, and there's some space out there that really could be accessed by a sunroom addition where you could go out that back door and easily have a visual connection. You don't want people walking behind your building and having programs behind your building when there's no access to come inside the building from there. And there were a number of different comments that the library should be redesigned to incorporate it to have better take advantage of Goddard Park, the views, the water, and the ability to have programs utilizing the park. The economic development plan, same thing, I won't go through all of them, but part of the suggestions that came out of this approved plan were just being forward-looking about how we design and create a town center to involve pedestrian and bicycle mobility, which this project does, decrease large surface parking areas, add a mix of housing, and leverage publicly owned properties in the area, more directly integrating the area with the Auburn Mall. So this project is really the culmination of all the goals that were identified in that plan as well. And then again, the master plan. Master plan focused very heavily on looking at continued development in Drury Square as a mixed-use walkable district. So again, we're looking to create a pedestrian bridge that would enable us to develop these walking and eventually biking trails that would give you that multimodal ability in the park and in the library and throughout Drury Square. Lots of talk about cleaning up the pond, maybe putting a fountain in the pond, clearing the brush around the pond. And again, I won't go through all of this. I just will show you that we are working with CMRPC, which is Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. We received 2 technical assistance grants, one in 2020 and one recently in 2021, to look at potential concepts for renovating and rejuvenating Goddard Park. And again, I think it's exciting to think of that because it focuses on an important historic element of Auburn's history, which is the Robert Goddard rocket. And it's really not prominent in the park right now, and there's a lot that could be done to make it more prominent and to make it more interesting, including signage and visuals and relocating it so it's in a better spot. So we've been working with CMRPC to look at what these options are. So I encourage you, if you haven't done it already, there's a great interactive survey that Adam and Shannon worked on with CMRPC, and it's on our website. And you can actually go on to this survey and manipulate the keys on your board and look around, and you can see different angles. So you can look at an aerial looking down, you can look at it at a flat-on view, you can look at a 3-dimensional view. You can see the different aspects of Goddard Park, the library, and the pedestrian bridge. So that is on our website. If you'd like to take that survey, that would be great. I think we have over 200 people who've taken it so far. The other things that are tied into this project, this, again, the $4.2 million Auburn Street reconstruction project, the project area is right there. On the bottom right corner of the screen, you can see where the black lines are pointed. That's the area that's part of this project that we had come to town meeting a couple of years ago for the funding for the landscaping and a walkway and a gazebo. So we're trying to extend that nice park area that we're going to have shortly into this Goddard Park area, so there's a seamless transition between the two, as opposed to a brand new, beautifully landscaped area and then Goddard Park that really does need some work. Again, these are some of the components, just a reminder of the things that we're going to be soon installed in Drury Square, which include decorative lighting, signage, landscaping, and decorative and functional walkways. And this is just a couple of pictures of the decorative lighting. We're going to have the ability to hang banners, to advertise for events that are happening, or to just put up nice banners for different seasons. You know, welcome to Auburn. Put up a nice winter banner or some nice snowflakes that are lit, and these light poles will have electric outlets, so we'll be able to put up lit displays if we want to at the holidays. We'll be able to do things in the summer. It will really help promote the businesses in that area and really make it a nice walkable downtown area for our residents. So the Shared Streets Program grant that we just received, it was very fast-tracked. We had applied for Brotherton Way several times with the state, and we finally did get funded for $280,000. The key here is we received the grant, and the work had to be done by May 31st. So Bill Coyle and DPW worked on the design, which had been in process already because we've applied for this several times. And we were able to amend our contract with the contractor who's doing some of the other work in town, so they could pick up and immediately start working on this. So as you can see, Brotherton Way is underway. The things that are going to happen in Brotherton Way, we are adding, and it's hard to see this, but we're going to be adding a wider pedestrian walkway, so it will be a walking trail that will go down Brotherton Way toward the library, and then the town is picking up through its streetscape program, annual roadway program, we're picking up the remainder to pave and put in the remainder from about where that traffic light is at going into the mall once you're in Brotherton, all the way out to Auburn Street. So I'm going to show you a picture, and hopefully this will just give you a little bit of an idea. So you can see on the bottom part, you can see the water to the north, and that sidewalk, which is the north sidewalk, is going to be expanded. And as you can look at this, it's going to be called a multi-use path. And one of the qualifications that the state has for programs like this is to expand outside activities and to expand multimodal uses, especially during COVID. The state wanted to encourage people to be outside, to help promote businesses, to help get people doing healthy things. So this was a perfect fit for this state program, and we're thrilled that we received the grant. This is also going to tie in with the wayfinding project, which we completed last year as well. And the slogan that we had come up with, we had a committee, we worked on this for over a year. Again, Shannon and Adam worked on this, and we had a consultant who helped design what the signage could look like. And this type of signage will be incorporated all through Drury Square, so there's some consistency in your wayfinding. And the slogan or logo we came up with was enhancing the past and launching into the future. And we thought it was a great sign for what we're trying to do, which is, enhance the past, talk about the past, embrace the past, but yet talk about the future too, and Auburn's future as a continuing, evolving community. So on to the cost. The projected project cost of this is about $1 million. I'm going to say it's $1,010,000 to be exact. The town applied for it and received a grant from the Arthur and Martha Pappas Foundation in the amount of $505,000. We were required, Ed and I and Jean spent many months putting together our proposal to the foundation. They had a lot of questions. They wanted to see an integrated approach to Drury Square. They wanted to see the library connected to Drury Square. They weren't as interested in just putting a library addition on, because the library addition didn't connect the library to Drury Square and all the activities going on in Drury Square. They wanted to leverage things that were going on in Drury Square. And they will pay 50% of the total project cost. So I'm going to go through and show you the funding strategy, and I will also want to highlight that this does not involve any new taxes. This is not an impact on the taxpayer through new taxes because we are bringing through these articles to town meeting available funds and looking for approval to redirect these available funds. So I'm going to take each component. So the estimated library sunroom addition, the foundation, so you can picture this pretty large addition, 79 feet by 16 feet wide. And the foundation for the area is approximately $25,000. The sunroom, and we put here Brady room style, recognizing we do have to go out to bid for projects of this magnitude. So we're not sure who the bidder will be, but if you can picture a Brady room, everyone knows what a Brady room looks like. That's the type of addition that will go on to the back. The delivery and installation, $25,000. The flooring and the shades for those special types of windows, $18,000, and the total cost is $310,000. I will point out that we didn't add in a cost for the landscaping in the side of the rear of the property because we are looking for other potential funding sources to do that, and that's a couple of phases away because you've got to get through all the construction before you do that. But ultimately, we'd like to see some outdoor space at the library, and we have some ideas on how to engage the community and engage the friends of the library to help create that outdoor environment. The estimated cost of the Goddard Park improvements, and again, this is an estimate. Depending if we get other grant dollars, depending on what happens when we go out to bid, we can shave some items off of this, or we could add some items, depending on the grant funds. But we're looking to add a walkway, again, that pedestrian connectivity, with some ornamental lights to be in keeping with what's happening on Auburn Street. Put in new electric service, park benches, trash receptacles, relocate the model rocket closer to the rocket to make a more historic type area. Potentially install a fountain in the pond and clean up the weeds around the edges of the pond, just to clean up the brush, and replace the pumps at the rocket and get that fountain functioning once again. So again, the approximate cost on this is $200,000. And then the last slide I'm going to show you, and I'm going to turn it over to Ed, is to go over the financing plan. This is the pedestrian bridge. This is the most expensive part of the project. And the reason is because of the topography of the library parcel and the Goddard Park parcel. So there's significant engineering and permitting costs that are involved in that because they're not quite at the same level. So it's a little bit of a challenge from an engineering perspective. So the construction is estimated at $420,000 with the permitting and engineering estimated at $80,000 for a total of $500,000. Again, the PAPIS grant is paying for 50% of the entire project. So 50% of this would be paid for through the grant. So here are your three pieces. The estimated library addition, $310,000, the Goddard Park improvements, $200,000, and the pedestrian bridge, $500,000 for a total of $1.010. I again want to just reiterate, we continue to seek funding, so we hope if we get additional funding, we can add work to the outside of the library, add work to the Goddard Park. We've asked, we've had applications into the state, we've asked for earmarks, we've asked for grants. We're going to keep doing that. And as you can see, we are successful sometimes, but we're going to keep trying and keep trying to expand this because that's an important part of town. So I'm going to turn it over to Ed.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for coming out tonight. This project, certain aspects of this project were very appealing to the Pappas Foundation because the Pappas Foundation has always been about community use. And so when you look at the aspects of the walking trail, it provides health and wellness to the residents of our community. It provides an educational and program activities for our residents at the library. And it opens up the potential for perennial gardens or vegetable gardens that may be a consideration for the park. So it is a way to pull the community together. And like I said, that was very appealing to the Pappas Foundation. What was also appealing when we had discussions with them, we said, when this project was first proposed, we were dealing with COVID. And certainly the outside aspect was very concerning. It offered an opportunity to get out and get some fresh air. But also, there was a lot of uncertainty as a result of COVID. There was high unemployment. People were losing their jobs. So we committed to the Pappas Foundation that we would do our best to pull our share together without relying on our residents, without relying on additional taxation. So, as Julie has indicated, there were no new taxes proposed in order to get this project completed. So what I'm going to attempt to do is go through the various funding sources. As Julie said, these are current available funds. These are funds that have either been borrowed and not spent because the projects have been completed or a project have been put on hold for a number of reasons. And we have to, whether it's for this project or any other project, we have to repurpose those funds so we don't get in a jam with the IRS. So there's a stipulation when you go out and borrow money that you have to spend that money down over a period of 2 to 3 years. And if you don't spend that money, then the IRS can come in and they can do a full audit and they can charge you penalties and interest and recoup the interest that you earned on that money. So as you recall, we periodically bring these matters before town meeting to repurpose these funds for other projects. So we're doing that for primarily Article 20, but going through Article 18 and 19, this is window money that was approved by town meeting for school admin building on West Street. And we had discussions with the school superintendent and school business manager saying, listen, we're trying to avoid an arbitrage issue here. We need to repurpose these funds. And we proposed the use of those funds to go towards our match of the library project. And they were happy to do so. They were excited about the project. They thought there was a major benefit to the community as well as the educational component for their school students as well. So they embraced the project and they were happy to repurpose those funds, and they are sponsoring those articles. Article 20, there are several library projects. There's 2 library windows, library HVAC, library foyer, library furniture, library interior paint. Certainly there were several attempts over the years to put an addition onto the library. I think several years ago, over 10 years, there was, I believe, a non-binding vote that went to, at the annual town election, asking if the voters would support an override to construct a new addition on the library. I think it was upwards of $14 million. And at that time, there was a state contribution to that in the vicinity, I believe, $3 million. Voters did not support that at the time, and there were attempts since then to do some upgrades to the library. And this is what these articles were attempting to do. The library window project, the larger of the 2, $21,000 and change. The project cost, they did some window replacements at the library, but the cost to replace the rear of the building, those windows far exceeded the 21. So there was nothing we could do with that money unless we went back to town meeting for some additional funding. Article 21 utilizes money we already have from the sale of real estate. That's $10,040 and change. There was a Mass Pro Tanto when they redid Mass 10, and there was a commercial aspect to that. We did a taking for that. There was a balance of roughly $6,300 in the event that value was contested by the buyer. In court, there wasn't. That money is now free and clear. We recently received, through the sale of Mary D. and Julia Bancroft, $50,000 for each. That final sale went through in January on JB. Mary D. was roughly a year prior to that. That money has been set aside in the reserve account to be used for whatever purpose. That money is available. We're earmarking it for this project. There was an ACE Solar legal reimbursement as a result of legal counsel doing work on behalf of the school department that allowed them to put solar panels on the roofs of the high school and the middle school. We did pay for that legal cost through the general fund. This was to reimburse that, although we already closed out the year. This money is now available for any other purpose. We had a residual balance from the Fema snow storm in 2018 of $12,912. And we've asked the Library Board of Trustees who embraced this project the use of the Norma Card Expendable Trust. She bequeathed $120,000 to the library as well as to the fire department. That has earned interest since we received that money. There's currently about $12,000, almost $13,000 of money without touching the principal on that account. Our free cash, we get a certification of roughly $15.7 million as of June 30th. We have a financial policy that allows 50% use of the net gain of free cash from one fiscal year to the next. That net gain was about $1.9 million. At the fall town meeting, we appropriated $780,000 primarily to fund OPEB and to put money away in our stabilization account, $250,000. That leaves about $147,000 to meet the 50% threshold, so we're asking to use that. We're asking for a one-time use of stabilization funds. We're earning over that in interest on our principal. We have about a $3.7 million principal on our stabilization account. Last year, we earned about $112,000 in interest. By using $80,000, we wouldn't be touching the principal balance of our stabilization account. In our overlay surplus, we do have some surplus funds that we identified, and we're asking $25,000. That would meet our just $5,000 short of our share of $505,000. The total amount of what I presented to you is exactly $500,000. There is an earmark in our CIP for FY23 for $25,000. It was formerly there to replace a boiler in the library. The boiler failed us this year. Is it in January, Gene? We had a catastrophic failure of the boiler. We had no choice. We had to replace the boiler a year in advance of what the CIP would allow us to do. We did come up with some funds within the department because some positions were currently vacant and not filled. So we were able to get that boiler replaced with existing funds. We are requesting to amend that. We amended that through the CIP for FY22. That would clearly meet our obligation of $505,000. So that's a summary of how these funds have been assembled. Certainly, I'd be happy to ask any questions either now or if you'd like to call the office before town meeting, be happy to have a conversation with you. So,
Thanks, Eddie. So our next steps here. We have our annual town meeting, May 4th, again, 6 p.m., to make sure everyone knows of the different time. If we get approvals, then we would start to actually design the project. We didn't go any further because we want to make sure that we can go further, but at that point we would enter the design stage. Then we will need board and commission approvals. I believe planning board for the site plan and conservation commission because we are crossing a stream. And then we would be preparing the bid documents and putting out various bids for the different components of the work under Mass General Law. And then we would start construction. So that really is the entirety of the proposed project. And we just want to emphasize that this project was developed through 5 to 6 years worth of various plans, identifying what's been in the plans, listening to what the residents said they would like to see in their Drury Square and in the area, and trying to find the best way to make that connectivity between all these projects, to really maximize the use of the dollars that we've put in, both from the federal government, from the state, and from the town. And we were thrilled to get this grant for $505,000. I would tell you that if we do get additional funding from various sources outside of this town meeting, again, through other grants that we're applying for other aspects of the project, that we may be able to go back to the Pappas Foundation and seek another grant to provide a match to the funding that we're able to get maybe from another grant. So there are some options that are out there now, but for right now, for this particular grant, this grant could only be used for this project. That's what it was applied for. The Pappas Foundation, as Ed mentioned, does a lot of great community work, but their focus really is to benefit as many residents of the community and as many demographics of the community as we can. And that's when we started having these conversations with them. You know, the library is a great project in and of itself. Goddard Park is a great project, but to merge the two and tie them into Drury Square really benefits the entire community, and that's what their grant focus is all about. So it was of appeal to them. We actually had to meet with the trustees of the foundation several times and give the same presentation to the trustees that we're giving to you this evening. And we were thrilled to get their approval in late January. So that is all I have on this particular project, and we just want to open it up for questions. Is there something, also feel free to tell us if you think we need to add to it. So I'm going to start in the back because I see, and then I'm going to move to you, Russell.
So this is the first that I have seen in the presentation of Goddard project. Where does the fact that it sits in the floodplain enter into the final approval and stability of the floodplain?
Great question, thanks. I'm going to turn to Bill Coyle.
Thank you. As Julie mentioned, the project would have to go through an extensive environmental review process. So Conservation Commission, but also DEP would review the project. We'd have to make sure that the pedestrian bridge itself meets the river crossing standards. Also look at the floodplain elevation, ensure that the bridge itself is out above the floodplain elevation. Any volume of material that we were to fill within the floodplain, which we're going to try to minimize that completely, but if there is a volume, we have to provide what they call compensatory storage. So if we fill in a volume, we have to excavate out an equal volume. So we certainly feel as though it's permittable. It's just we have to go through the necessary agencies to get approval. I think this, we're going to have very little impact relative to the floodplain, because the only time that the floodplain that you really get involved with compensatory storage is if you're filling it in. So the walkways, the grade will be maintained. I don't anticipate a significant fill or any fill at all to achieve that. So those areas won't be of concern. The bridge itself will be spanning over the floodplain elevation. So I don't see it as a significant impact, which would mean it shouldn't be a significant cost for any work that we'd have to do to make sure we comply with their requirements. Thank you.
Thank you. Russell? That's a great question. I think it all depends on how much permitting we have to go through, but again, I'd probably turn to Bill Coyle for the best estimate. We do believe that we need to phase it a little bit. I can tell you the library project could be done in a matter of probably 3 or 4 months, but Bill could better answer on the bridge.
Yeah, I think there's several components we have to look at. We have the architectural component for the sunroom, and then we have the design component for the pedestrian bridge and the walkways. So they can happen concurrently, but they would be separate. They would probably proceed separately because they're kind of separate areas of expertise. And just thinking out loud, if the funding was approved at May town meeting, becoming available in July, I could see us taking the better part of the year for design, because we have to go out, solicit bids for the project. Construction could start, I'll just say sometime next year. It wouldn't happen before this winter, and hopefully would go out to bid and start the following year, so in 2022. Exactly when, it's kind of early to say. It really depends on how quickly things move along.
Sure.
Isn't that this is a beautiful, beautiful park, which is going to be drawing a lot of people. I'm kind of familiar with the areas, but how is parking for
Well, there's a couple different options. First of all, there is parking right near the fire station. So there is a good-sized lot facing the fire station to the left. The library... Yes. The library has a good-sized lot as well. Right now, let's take the holiday tree lighting event that we have at Christmas. People really can't park at the library and walk over unless they go down along Southbridge Street. They go down along Southbridge Street, they come up to the fire station, they come up to the tree. With the pedestrian bridge, you could actually park at the library parking lot and cross over and be in Goddard Park. And then we've also always had very good partnership with the Auburn Mall itself, and we have worked with them in the past in enabling people to use their parking lot to help us as well for certain events, so we anticipate that we will be able to develop those partnerships again. There is a Drury Square plan that does identify other potential lots in Drury Square because, let's face it, Drury Square is, as many older centers are, limited on parking, and a lot of the parking, which you actually want, is behind the buildings because you want the front part of your facing buildings to be pedestrian friendly, aesthetically appealing. You don't want a front-facing parking lot. You want parking lots in the rear of your buildings. That's a better design. So we're looking to utilize the parking spaces we have, but give us better access to them by having the walking trails as well as the bridge. I should mention also that the ADA accessibility piece here is important. We went through an entire year plan to come up with an ADA transition plan and a self-evaluation plan. We received a grant to do this, and we went through every single town building, school building, park, and recreation area, and had a consultant go through and do an analysis of every area to see what we could do to enhance accessibility for those with disabilities. And this project would hit on some of those areas that we really need to improve to make the park more accessible, including wheelchair access. And again, that kind of ties into the work that we're doing on Brotherton Way right now and the work that will be done on Auburn Street. No, we want the questions, and we're happy, whatever questions you ask. Like I said, we want to make sure town meeting members have this, if they're not here tonight and don't get a chance to watch it, we'll repeat some of these things at the town meeting.
Another question. Is it necessary to spend the money to move the rockets, landscaping around it? What's the thought behind that?
I would tell you it's not necessary. No, that is an option. And when we actually get into design, we can look at the different elements of what could be moved or whatnot. I know that the interactive survey that's going on right now, we're asking people to submit, but Bill may also have some comments on the rocket. I know there's some issues with the electrical now that we need to address when we do renovate.
Right, I think there's a lot of electrical issues for the park in general that we have to replace the entire system. I think it's more the model that we're talking about moving,
Right.
the smaller model that's encased, right? So that's
Not the
what
big
we're
rocket.
referring to as moving the rocket, not the, exactly, right. Right, when you asked the question, I suspected that's what you were.
Oh, that's a good question, yes.
Yeah.
That large, thank you, Bill, the large rocket where the fountain was, and we hope will once again be, would remain in the same location. It would be moving the replica of the original closer to that, and maybe enhancing the signage so people who come to the park can learn a little about the history of Robert Goddard and the connection to Auburn. So right now they're very spread apart and they're not really physically connected or visually connected. No problem.
Now, for this whole project, $10 million. All this work and everything that was there, really, that kind of stuff. To follow up on that, we'll get the $500,000 grant, which means we're only going to have to pay our town coffers $500,000. If the goal goes wrong, if there's issue, will this by any means affect our tax base?
I would turn to Ed, but I want to make sure I understand the question. So if the project runs over, if any component of the project runs over, I would tell you our plan is really, if we have an overrun, if there's going to be an overrun, it's probably, if anything, would be on the bridge. The library addition, we're very close because we did receive some quotes, so we were able to get quotes. That's a fixed structure. The bridge, we did get some quotes, so we're close on it. But if it did run over for some other reasons, we're keeping the Goddard Park scope a little bit flexible. So right now we're saying 200,000 is going into that. If we have to reduce that, by 100,000 to add money to the other projects, we would do that because we continue to apply for grants to enhance Goddard Park. So I think Goddard Park is one of those projects that it's not going to all be done that first year because we may continue to get grant funding to do extra things to it. So we may get a grant to do a complete cleanup of the water and do something spectacular with the water as opposed to we're going to clean the outside and put a fountain in. So we have some flexibility in the budget on the Goddard Park component, and we hope, we've identified some potential funds that are coming down the road, grant funds or donation funds that we believe we could use to then build up the scope of Goddard Park if we do have to reduce it. We think of all the scopes, the Goddard Park is probably the most minimal. I think for what we all really envision and would love to see in the park would cost significantly more than $200,000, but we're not done looking for money. So this is really for this phase. Does that answer? Great. Anyone else? Ken?
How far is the bridge going to be from the sidewalk? South Street?
I thought someone might ask that question. I think once we start going through the design process, we're envisioning the bridge to be more towards the dam. So if I was to guesstimate a distance, I would say somewhere between 75 to 100 feet away from the dam. Because we went out and looked at it probably 6 months ago, Alicia and I, and we walked Route 12. And obviously, the closer you bring the pedestrian bridge to Route 12, it kind of defeats the purpose of having that pedestrian bridge because there's a walkway on Route 12. So we felt it necessary to try to bring that closer to the dam and make it more convenient for library access to Goddard Park. So, again, we'll have to look at the crossing, the distance, but it's certainly not going to be, 25, 50 feet away from Route 12 because that would defeat the purpose.
My thought was even 75 feet, spending $500,000 for a bridge when you have a sidewalk, you could use it and still increase your walking path.
So I think the goal is to make sure that the bridge works to connect the library with Goddard Park. It may end up being 50 feet away. It's too early to say how close it will be. I think the main thing we have to look at is the flood elevation, the span of the bridge, complying with environmental standards. But our goal is we don't want to get close to Route 12 because, again, that kind of defeats the purpose of what we're trying to do. So I certainly appreciate your comment, and our goal would be to try to keep it more towards the dam. Also aesthetically, I think would be better for someone to have the visual of standing on the bridge and watch the water go over the dam and enjoy the environmental features as well.
Right, and thank you, Bill. And to follow up on that, to your point, right now you can walk from the library along Southbridge Street. But the reality is people don't want to do that. They don't want to walk with their family. They don't want to go to the library, take out materials, walk all the way down Southbridge Street, all the way around the corner, up the bend, along the traffic route, and into the park behind the fire station. That was made clear to us in all the public meetings that we held on Drury Square, that people felt that there should have been, early on, built some kind of connection between these two town-owned assets that right now you can only access by taking a pretty long walk down along that sidewalk and back and around. So this is trying to, as Bill said, shorten that distance, create a closer connection so the library can really be connected to the park and vice versa, because people just don't want to go all the way around there. Yes. Correct, and I'm gonna turn to Ed, but that project right now, so I don't know if everyone can hear with the acoustics, so I'll just repeat. Will the proposed or now under discussion public safety facility have any impact on the funding for this project? It would be completely different. The funding for a public safety project, if it were to go forward, would be likely through a debt exclusion vote. So for that to happen, we're still several steps away. Right now, we're preparing the RFP, request for proposals, to see what land options we have available to us. So we don't have the land to build this. So we have to go out to bid. Under the law, we have to bid, and we have to have a landowner respond to that bid and tell us what parcels they're interested in selling to us and at what price. Once we get that, we can get a whole budget together, and then the Board of Selectmen would have to take a vote to put an article, to put a question on the annual, on the election, which we would probably have a special election early fall to do that. So again, that project is much further away than this. There hasn't been a vote of the public yet as to whether we want to proceed with that, but if we do, it would be a debt exclusion vote if that project were to go forward. And then the next question would probably be, so what do you do with the fire station, the existing headquarters? So have been several discussions about what to do with the existing headquarters, and obviously it's a very attractive area for some type of either mixed use or commercial or residential development. So we believe that enhancing Goddard Park, adding a bridge to the library, and creating this connectivity will make that parcel even more valuable to the town, should the town go forward and sell the parcel. If the town were to make the decision to keep the parcel, then you still want to have an enhanced park area behind it because you're utilizing that for municipal purpose. I'm going to let Ed answer more specifically than me.
I don't see the approval of this project impacting the voters' decision to move forward or not move forward with a public safety facility. I think that's why it was important that we attempted to do this without increasing taxation by a penny. It's important that we were able to do this through current available funds. I think if there was a small level of taxation associated with this project, it may jeopardize the consideration for a public safety facility. But a project of that magnitude, you're talking upwards of $45 million. The only way you're going to fund a project of that size is through a debt exclusion vote, through an authorization to borrow, with a payback of 25 to 30 years to make it palatable. I think anything other than that would be very difficult to do. So I hope that answers your question.
Yes, Jeff.
Curiosity, with the sunroom, do you anticipate making any savings to the library by opening that up in the glass?
I would say we haven't looked at exact dollar amounts other than to say that in general, if they're properly installed and if they have the proper shade and I believe we call it a shading system, then you can capture the heat after it's been in there. Again, as Ed said, we had some trouble with the boiler at the library anyway, so right now we actually do have, we're in good shape for heating at the library, but there may be some savings on that, but Jeff, I'm not 100% certain. I know from our little research on that, we don't believe that there's going to be an increase in cost. There may be a savings, but I don't believe there's going to be an increase. I think one of the concerns we do have, obviously, is it's going to be very warm in there, so that's why you have to make sure that when we get this, we get the blinds, so at certain times of day, the sun won't be beating down on people who are in there. Jean, did you want to add to it, or does that cover it?
Visited the library a number of times, and the return on the air and the new boiler system as well. The new one has 3 components you can easily add a fourth one if you need to help circulate air. So we really didn't feel like that was going to be any major consideration at all. We did look into whether we're going to put baseboards in. There was a discussion about radiant floor heating, which might also be a possibility. So those would be discussed later after it's gone up to bid and we actually see what we're.
Thanks. It's a very good question, Jeff. Thank you. Yes.
And a couple questions. This is the answer to my before. What kind of programs and drivers right now are
I'm sorry, what kind of programs?
Program.
I'm sorry, it's hard to hear up here.
No problem. So with Goddard Park right now, what sort of groups and programs are currently ongoing in Goddard Park?
At the library?
Just in general, because I mean, the only thing in recent memory that I can recall actually going there for, possibly the Memorial Day duck race. And I remember at that point it being largely a toilet for Canadian geese. So are there currently any groups that are utilizing the park right now that will benefit from this as well? Or are we simply hoping that there's going to be some need, some perceived need for a park kind of in the middle of nowhere?
Well, I would tell you the park's right in the middle of the town center of town, so it's an important park to have. We do, I can't speak to what groups may be using it, which I think is your question, but I can tell you the high school does use it. They use the pond there, they use the Goddard Park. The library has mentioned several times that they would like to use it, but again, their patrons don't want to walk all the way around, either on Brotherton Way or on Route 12 to get there for a library program. So it's not that we're hoping to have use of it, we actually have some programs that we've already tried to come up with that we could use that park for. And we have a lot of people who do get to the park. I think the fire chief will tell you this. They come to the park, they park at the fire department, they walk behind, they say, oh, it's beautiful, but where does it go? And how do you get to the library? So he always says they look longingly from the fire station over to the library, and that is true because it's very difficult to explain how to now get to the library. So we had been approached several years ago by the Rotary Club, and they were looking to make some improvements to the park. Just some small things, just some benches, but the reality is until we renovate that park and make it more appealing and make it more attractive, we're probably not going to attract a lot more people than already come. But we do have school groups that use it. We do have some not-for-profit organizations that use it for various pre-COVID events that they would have there.
Next question was, with the rocket model that's there, the large one, in the middle of the pond, weren't those fountains supposed to be maintained by someone at some point? I mean, I know that they're currently not functioning, if I remember correctly, last time I was over that way. Maybe it was the time of year that's possible, but I don't recall them actually being on, the ones that are actually surrounding the larger model in the middle.
So the question is, can you repeat that? Was the rocket donated? Was that your question?
Well, like, are there currently supposed to be fountains there now, pumps to run a fountain around the rocket, for example, or was it simply something that was there and then somebody sort of abandoned as a piece? Or
I believe over the years, probably several decades ago, when it was created, there was probably not a maintenance plan in place for it. I have never seen one. I don't think DPW has seen a maintenance plan. Right now, DPW tries to maintain it, but by that point, a lot of the equipment was already beyond repair. They've looked at it. Bill, do you want to ask?
I don't think that's been functional for a role.
next question: once we get the nice parking, we get the walkway, where does the money to maintain that come from?
So where
Because
does the money?
where does the money for maintaining? Where does the money for maintaining the walkways and all this come from going forward? Okay, so we'd probably be looking at an increase somewhere down the line to accommodate this extra space.
I don't think I would say an increase in terms of the budget. It's more of a staffing issue in terms of maintenance, and we hire seasonal help in the summer. So, mowing grass and raking and plowing in the winter. So I don't see it as a significant increase in the operations of the budget. It's kind of a relatively small park compared to what we maintain throughout the town.
Right, but a fairly large walking trail that I'm going to assume with ADA compliance is going to be a semi-permeable surface of some sort that will need replacement.
It'll be mostly asphalt pavement. The, Brotherton Way, the shared use path is gonna be asphalt. So again, we already maintain that, we already plow it. So in the winter, we'll plow that, it'll be a little wider, but, probably won't plow the entire width of that area, in a major snowstorm. But again, overall, compared to the amount of space that the Parks Department is maintaining now, this would be a very small percentage of an increase to that total area being maintained.
So this isn't a walking trail around the entirety of the pond.
There'll be some areas that, I think in the future we envision, there's a wooded area that we'd like to have some trails that, just opposite the mall. There's a small area that's wooded now. We thought maybe going forward, we might be able to do something with that, but I don't think that's part of this particular scope of work right now.
Okay, thank you. Next question. The money for the addition, we had discussed that, there would be some degree of, IRS level kind of penalties and whatnot if the money that was coming from the other plans was not utilized. However, in that list, I noticed that one of the larger items, the $100,000 from the sale of Mary D, was included in there, which was not an actual expense in that case. The FEMA snowstorm, I believe, wouldn't that be a reimbursement to the highway department? That would to offset costs? And I'm curious why that's not going towards the upcoming budget instead. The ACE Solar legal reimbursement, again, that's a reimbursement, not necessarily an appropriation. So we're looking at 110, 136 plus another 16 on there that actually aren't expenses that were kind of on there. So why are those not going back into the town? Other than, indirectly through this match.
So you got to look at the origin of these reimbursements. So, for instance, the FEMA snow, we replenished to the extent that we deficit spend in the snow and ice account. And then we've always reserved whatever balance is remaining. And we always voted that out at a future town meeting for any purpose that is needed to, or seeking available funds. The sale of Mary D and JB, there was no outlay, so it's really not a reimbursement to the town. It's a sale of real estate. It's an available fund. It's a proper method of accounting for these funds. You set it aside an available fund, and town meeting determines what purpose it would like to spend that money on. So I understand what you're saying. If there was a cash outlay on behalf of the town, that money came in, we would have to reimburse the town. In a lot of these cases, there's no cash outlay.
Right. For the 18, 19, and 20, I know this is a reappropriation of funds. But I know the $100,000, that's not necessarily a reappropriation. That could be $100,000 that came off another budget item someplace. Whether it goes towards fire, highway, someplace else. I'm just curious why it's going towards a match on a parks program.
We could use it for any purpose that town administration should make a recommendation on. It just so happens that we feel the use of this $100,000 would be a benefit to the residents of our community.
Okay, thank you. And then last one, actually one more for you, Mr. Kazanovich. You did mention...
And we wouldn't use one-time revenues to support operational costs. That's just not good accounting practice.
Okay, but that would have... I've been a town meeting member for a while now, and I know that the discussion of the monies from that were to come back to the town at some point, and would likely go into maybe free cash or a stabilization fund, or I don't know how all that works, but it seems like that money would have actually gone back into the larger coffer as opposed to being earmarked for what seems like a vanity project. I apologize to the library because I would fully support an improvement. I know that their building's in rough shape. I've been there. But what I'm seeing here is I'm seeing you at one point mentioned that there were years where trying to get that improvement through the tax or through the votes. But I'm also hearing that there's a bunch of programs that people are clamoring to have that we can't have. So there's this kind of this dissonance there where you're saying there's a whole lot of support for the library, but you're saying that there's not a whole lot of support for the library. So I'm wondering if we're shoring up something that again, I apologize to the library because I do think you're a valuable resource to the town, but I think attaching this to the bridge to nowhere is a little bizarre, particularly when I recall when we discussed the gazebo for the concerts for this area of town. This was not going to be located in Goddard Park. This was going to be close to the corner where the fire department is now. So we're still talking about the same kind of situation, except we're putting a bridge in. This saves you a couple of feet from going down to the roadway where there's an existing sidewalk now.
Well, I can tell you that the way we're treating these uses of funds is consistent with direction we get from the Department of Revenue. We cannot take sale of real estate in as a general fund revenue and take it in as an offset to the general fund. It's not allowed. So it's for town meeting to decide what those funds can be used for, so they can vote it up or down. We just feel that this is a good use of the funds at this point in time.
Okay, thank you. And I believe that was it. Thank you.
Okay.
I just want to mention one thing on FEMA too, and I'm not sure what storm this was, 2018. So this just shows you, sometimes we don't get our FEMA reimbursements for 2 to 3 years after the event. Sometimes it's been longer than that. Our books are already closed out. As Ed said, we already had to pay for those services back in the fiscal year in which they were incurred. So when the dollars come in, it's not putting them back to where they started because that money has already been plugged back in through the snow and ice account. Because of the delay, again, we're getting a delay of reimbursements for things that happened 3 years ago. So it has to be treated differently than you would treat an operational fund. But thanks, good questions. Anyone else have any questions? And if not, I would also, we're going to just move on to the bylaws, but I would tell you, if you think of questions, please don't hesitate. Send us an email, give us a call. We want to know what the questions are. We want to try to prepare some information for the other town meeting members too, but we're just grateful that you took the time to come tonight because this is valuable to us as well. Yes?
Informational question about the fire station right there. Will it be impacted at all? And is there concerns that the fire station may be moved at one point? I remember there was a question about whether to have the police station.
Sure. So the question is, would there be an impact and would the fire station potentially be moved? It may be moved at some point. Again, we are in a real early phase of finding out what the final costs would be of a joint public safety facility. So we're going to put out a bid to see what property owners may submit to us to see how much the land would cost. And then the Board of Selectmen would have to vote to put a question on the ballot. So we're thinking, if you look at a timeline, that ballot question would probably be in September. And then if the residents vote in favor of a public safety facility, we would come back to town meeting for the appropriation, probably at a fall town meeting or a special town meeting for that. So ultimately, if that took place, then yes, the fire headquarters would not remain where it is. It would be part of this new facility. So the options for that are the town could keep it and use it for municipal facility, in which case it has no impact on this project. Or we would sell the fire station land and maybe you'd get a nice, small mixed use project in there. Maybe you'd get a retail on the bottom with a couple of condominiums on top, in which case the work that's being done at the park would enhance the value of the fire station parcel because there's a park right behind it. You're welcome. Thanks. So right now I'm just going to turn it over to Adam Menard, and he has just a couple of brief things on 2 zoning articles, zoning bylaw articles, and then Eilish with the stormwater article, which is a little bit more complex. Thanks.
So, good evening. My name's Adam Menard. I'm the town planner. got a couple proposed zoning bylaw amendments this year. They're relatively smaller amendments. A little bit of background. 2 years ago, the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission awarded the town a grant to conduct a zoning diagnostic. They went through all the town's zoning bylaws, spent about 6-9 months reviewing it, and came back with a list of recommendations. These two zoning bylaw amendments came out of those recommendations. The first one is the first section of the zoning bylaw, the authority and purpose. This is basically just some housekeeping language, just modernizing the purpose of the zoning bylaw. What you see in red is the proposed added language, and the black struck out is what we propose to eliminate. So this is just kind of modernizing this particular section of the bylaw. Does anyone have any questions on this? The second one I've been calling duplicate bylaws. About 6 or 7 years ago, the town general bylaws were renumbered. These 5 bylaws were kind of forgotten to be removed from the zoning bylaws. They now reside in the town general bylaws. So they're duplicates in the zoning bylaw. The point of removing them is to clean up zoning. These can be confusing for applicants which version of the bylaws, the town general bylaws or the zoning bylaws to use. And the town's general bylaws are actually more up to date than the zoning bylaws. So by removing the zoning bylaws, we're ensuring that applicants are using the most up to date version of the bylaws. Again, this is kind of a housekeeping proposal just to clean up the zoning. None of these are going to actually be completely removed from town bylaws. They're going to remain in the general bylaws. Does anybody have any questions on this? No, it's pretty, like I said, it's housekeeping. It's pretty straightforward. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. Happy to answer any.
And now we're going to turn to Eilish Corey. I'll let you set up. Who's going to present on the stormwater bylaw?
You can all see my face since I'm so short. So just let me know if you have any problems hearing me. Oh, is that easier to, I just don't want to be a voice, a disembodied voice. All right, great. So hello to everybody here. This is actually my first time participating in town meeting in Auburn, so I'm very excited to be here. My name is Eilish Corey. I'm the Senior Civil Engineer at the Department of Public Works, and I'm going to be talking to you about our stormwater management program, and specifically the changes that we are proposing in Article 31. So the reason that we are making these changes down at the real impetus for this is that we have federal requirements that were handed to us, and they are basically increasing the design standards for stormwater infrastructure that's built in town. And we have a deadline of June 30th of this year to put those changes in place, or we could potentially be facing enforcement actions, which are administered at the federal level by the Environmental Protection Agency. And those can include some fairly hefty financial fines, so it's definitely something to take into consideration. So to give you a little bit of a background of why these changes are being put into place, I'm just going to give you an overall view of the science and how the permitting got passed down. So what is stormwater? It's basically rain for the most part, but it includes any other type of precipitation that comes from the sky, such as sleet, hail, anything that's water that comes from the clouds. So when stormwater hits the ground, it becomes what we call runoff. And that's of particular interest right now because that runoff picks up pollutants that are on the ground that just happen naturally as a result of development. And when that happens in great enough numbers, those pollutants can concentrate to a point where they can cause some serious environmental and public health safety hazards. So we as a society always kind of dealt with this by trying to push the stormwater out of the way as quickly as possible. If you ask a stormwater engineer, they'll tell you the kind of the old adage, the solution to pollution is dilution. And unfortunately, that's just not working anymore. We've had a buildup of these pollutants over time. So now we really can't do anything further to prevent that concentration from impacting our health. So there's been a movement in recent years towards a more natural, sustainable method of stormwater management. And so if you've ever seen a detention pond, an infiltration basin, that all kind of works into that sort of new method of management. So in support of this, the Environmental Protection Agency, as well as the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection, issued what is called an Ms4 permit. And this was initially done in 2003, and the permit was renewed in 2018. So the permit is given to municipalities that have a certain density of population based on the US Census. So all of the municipalities that you see up there that have a color on them, they have this permit, which does include Auburn. So I say that EPA and Mass DEP are partners in this permit, but I should really emphasize that EPA is the one who's driving it. So again, it's at that federal level that these requirements are coming. So we do have a regulatory mechanism put in place for enforcing stormwater standards, and that is our existing bylaw. However, the Ms4 permit has these 3 different topics that they want for us to specifically address. And that has to do with stormwater management during construction, how stormwater infrastructure is maintained after construction, as well as how that infrastructure treats for certain types of pollutants, and in particular in Auburn, they're focusing on phosphorus. So our existing bylaw was put into place as a result of the 2003 permit, and it authorizes what is called a land disturbance permit, and it also authorizes the creation of a stormwater committee. And the members for that committee are listed on the right. So although this bylaw was put into place, it was never actually enforced because a set of regulations that is needed to provide the real details of how it's administered was never developed. So we have 2 real reasons for wanting to change this bylaw. One is that we have created a set of draft regulations that will enable us to administer the bylaw, which we are required to do since it's been voted in. However, it doesn't currently sync with the way the bylaw is written. And that has a lot to do with the age of the bylaw. Stormwater is, I hate to say, rapidly evolving technological field. You'd think it's pretty low technology, but it's actually quite amazing what they can do with some of the treatment devices nowadays. The other reason is that we are required to by our Ms4 permit. And the way that the bylaw is currently written does not meet the requirements of that permit. So if you have received a copy of the article, I'm sure you saw that it's 21 pages. It's quite a lot. But I think that the changes can really be boiled down into these 4 general topics. And the first is to update key definitions to modern standards. Again, this bylaw was written quite a while ago, and we've made some pretty significant advances in the way that we both view and treat stormwater. The second is to remove duplicate or contradictory language. For instance, we have a definition for land disturbance, as well as a definition for disturbance of land. and they're slightly different. And that's something that's very important to have a single clear message when you're administering a land disturbance permit. So by updating this confusing language, it makes it easier for the town to administer, as well as for any applicants to the land disturbance permit to understand what they have to do. The third is to remove any technical references and procedural language into the set of regulations that will be attached to the bylaw. And that is going to prevent us from having to come to town meeting every time there's some sort of change in the regulations. For example, we know that the state is most likely going to be issuing its own set of updated regulations in the near future. So I don't want to have to come back out here and explain why we are changing this thing that we just changed last spring. The fourth is that we, the town, are a member of a regional stormwater group, and that group paid to have a consultant come in and perform an audit of about 30 member communities in the central Massachusetts area of their existing stormwater bylaws. And they found that Auburn has some of the most conservative thresholds for requiring a permit. And that's definitely something that we don't want. We don't want to be out of step with our neighboring communities and making it harder for development to occur in Auburn if that developer knows they can go to the next door community and not be required to have this permit. So we're going to be raising the thresholds to require less permits, which is in step with both the permit, our neighboring communities, and does not compromise the water quality goals that we're trying to achieve. So once this bylaw hopefully gets voted in, it will be the responsibility of the Department of Public Works to administer. And we're going to be working very closely with the members of the Stormwater Committee to vote in that set of draft regulations once the draft has been finalized. We're also going to be updating the town's website to have a lot of educational documents for developers who are going to be the main audience for this permit, and working with other boards and commissions and departments to ensure that the permitting process is as smooth as possible. There's a lot of overlap between this permit and what is required from planning, what's required from Conservation Commission. So just this summarizes a little bit of what I said. And my contact information is over here on the side if you'd like to contact me separately, but otherwise I can take any questions you might have. Yes. So the underlying intent of the bylaw is not changing. It's just changing the standard to which the design is performed to. So for example, it's going to require a higher level of pollutant treatment than what is currently required, if that makes sense. So like instead of treating 80% of the phosphorus that comes into the system, the developers who come after this permit's been put into place will have to treat 90% of the phosphorus. It's little things like that that are really changing. Any other questions? Yes. Sure, so that comes up a lot. So I do have a ready answer, I'm happy to say. So the main reason that we're coming right now is because this part of the permit was, I'm blanking on the word, under judicial review until this past January. And so there were some towns who had decided to go forward with the changes in previous years, but now are coming back to town meeting for the spring because there were changes as a result of that legislative action. And so we had felt at the time that we didn't want to have to do that. So we're just making all these changes right now. Yes. No. So this has been under consideration since the permit was first put into place in 2018. And we've really been working seriously on coming up with the regulations and changes to the bylaw for the past year or so, in anticipation of the legislative changes going forward. Yes, so as long as the bylaw is voted, as long as the changes to the bylaw are voted in, the regulations that would accompany it can be voted in by the Stormwater Committee, and that can be done within a matter of weeks after town meeting. Welcome. Any other questions? Yes. So we have included the repair and replacement of existing septic systems as an exempt activity under this permit. And that's really because we see it as a health and safety issue. If it's a new septic system, we would require basic controls like erosion and sediment control to be put into place. But for the most part, it's not going to be changing if it's on like a new property, I should say. But for the most part, the installation of those systems isn't going to be changing the construction practices of what a contractor would normally be doing. Does that answer your question fully? Yes. Okay. Anyone else? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. So that is actually something I would turn to Adam to talk about, I guess. So we're, oh, no. No, not directly. Okay. Anyone else? No? All right. Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Great job for her first time at a pre-meeting. Thank you, Ed, and excellent questions, because I agree, that is one that comes up all the time, right? Why are we doing this now when we've had it since 18, but it wasn't until 3 months ago that the regulations were finalized, and we knew that was going to happen, so it's been several years in the making here. And again, we want to thank town meeting because they have supported us with creating a stormwater position because we knew we had to come into compliance with this. So once again, we just want to thank all of you for coming tonight. I know it's just another night. We really appreciate it. And Ed and I were just making notes for the town meeting presentation. We want to make sure we incorporate some of the questions that you had, at least some of the responses to your questions, because if you're asking it, we know there are other members that will ask it as well. So this is really helpful for us to understand what additional information you may need to have the night that you discuss this and debate it. So we appreciate it. And again, contact information, I think it's on the letter that we sent you all. You can email us, call our office. We're there, regular hours, answer emails pretty much all the time. So thank you all, and we'll see you on May 4th. And I would just mention again, you probably can't hear me with this, but I just mentioned that we do have the new electronic voting machines. And they should be very simple. The town clerk and our IT director, Mike Marino, met with several companies to get the one that seemed to be the simplest, and this is very basic. Red for no, green for yes. There'll be instructions, but if you haven't done so already, could you please let the clerk's office know if you're planning to attend? We're assuming you all are. The reason we're asking people to let us know is because we're trying to figure out the programming on these units. Some people, this room holds 55 people. The other room holds like 70 people. So hopefully 120 town meeting members come. And if they do, we just need to have an idea of how many so the machines can be programmed accordingly. We're also trying to figure out how many people are going to want to be in their vehicles. These machines supposedly will reach out to their vehicles, so it'll be really easy for those people to participate. So if you get a chance, give the town clerk's office a call, just trying to get an idea on the count. Again, the Board of Selectmen took a vote back in September under the law that passed, Mass General Law passed. It was the Acts of 2020, to enable towns to reduce their quorum only for the period that the current state of emergency due to COVID is in effect. So the vote to reduce the quorum to 40 is only while the state of emergency is in effect. Now, of course, it's been advertised. If it were to come out of effect May 4th, that we'd have to look at what you would do. But right now, it's only in effect until the state emergency remains in effect. But I want to reiterate, a reduced quorum of 40 is not, it's not capping. We want all 120 members to attend. The reality is, it's challenging for members, especially during a pandemic, to come to a town meeting. Some of them have health issues or concerns, so we want to be able to do our business. So reducing it to 40 will enable us to have a meeting if only 40 people were to come. Thankfully, I don't think that's going to happen. We've taken precautions. Hopefully all our town meeting members know that we've made it as safe as it can be to participate. But I just want to assure everybody, once that state of emergency is lifted, that quorum goes right back to 80. That is a one-time under the law just during a certain period. So we want everyone to come. It's better to have 120 than 40, but at least if we only are able to get 40, we're still able to get our business done. So thanks, and let us know. Yes, Russell? Actually, we were very fortunate. We purchased these, and we purchased them because they were an eligible expenditure under the CARES Act funding that we received. Because it was directly related to COVID. We need the machines because we have people separated in different rooms and outside. And as we know, it's a challenge for the moderator and for all of us to make sure that we're getting the vote, right? So we have people out in the parking lot, we have people in the cafeteria, we have people here, and we want to make sure that we don't make any mistakes. We want to make sure that the vote is fast, so we're not, you've seen it takes a little bit of time. So we were able to purchase the machines using CARES Act funds as an eligible COVID expenditure. We wouldn't have needed them if it wasn't for COVID, but once we've purchased them, now we own them. And now we can use them for every meeting. Yeah, we're very excited about it. Yes, Joe? Do you remember that? Joe, I'm sorry, I can get that for you. We received 3 bids, and I don't recall which one. All right, yeah, I don't have the answer. I'll get it for you. But they did get 3 bids. Ed, what was the total on this one? About $9,000 or 10? Yeah, just under $10,000 for these. And again, it's directly reimbursable through the CARES Act, and may even be partially reimbursable through FEMA. When we submit it, we'll know. But either way, it's 100% covered. And it's a benefit to the town. So, and there will be a screen, my understanding is, there's a screen, probably be somewhere behind us, and as the votes are tallied, as you press your buttons, it will pop up on the screen behind you what that vote is. It has the ability to do it by name, we're not using that, we're just doing the total, yes and no. So the moderator can instantly, and it will calculate a 2/3 vote, so no more counting, unless someone were to challenge it, but it will all be electronic, you'll see a 2/3 vote. Yes? There was not a screen out there. We used the speaker system throughout the school so you could hear everything, and we eliminated our presentations because we knew the people in the cars couldn't see it and the people in the cafeteria couldn't see it. I think this time, I'm going to pre-tape my presentation because I think town meeting members have a right to know what's happened during the past year and where your taxpayer dollars have gone. Likewise, the school superintendent's going to pre-tape it, and we'll have those available. You can see them before the meeting. We don't want to take up your time. There will be a screen here because Ed will still have to put up all the budget information. We can check on that and see if we can put one. At one point, I believe we talked about putting a screen in there. I can't see Chris. There may have been a screen out there. I know we looked at using the television monitors that are in the presentation room and the band room as well. So we can, I believe we can get a screen out there. I'm going to have, likewise, the presentation as well as at least the one that you just saw this evening, have it available. Probably just do a similar to what we did tonight so everybody is aware of it. But like I said, we tried to put information in the packet, so hopefully people would call us with questions ahead of time. So we're ready. We're ready to provide you with whatever information that you need. But we'll definitely check on that screen.
Will it be possible to get some information on how those are audited?
Would it be possible to get information on what?
Information on how the voting machines are audited for accuracy. I actually test software voting, so program I'm trusting.
Okay. Yeah, no, I can check on that. Our IT director and our town clerk did all the analysis of this, and the company rep will be here that evening, because part of buying this is to get their technical support for at least the first time that you use the system. So that's a great question, audit it. I know they've tested the system several times. They've been out in the parking lot, they've been in the cafeteria, they're working on that, but that is a great question. We'll check on it. Anyone else? All right, everyone, be safe, have a great night. Thanks for coming out, we really appreciate it.